Welcome. If you like this content, if you want to see more of it, I implore you to hit the like button down there, the subscribe button, get your notifications going if you're into that, and possibly hit up the Patreon and become a contributing member to make all of this possible. Welcome to Comfortable Eyes. This is Harry. And now we're going to ask the question, who is Q? Well, to ask who is Q, well, first you'd have to really know what Q is. Q is member of the message board, the former message board, 4chan and 8chan and 8kun, which if you just look up any MSM, is a widely debunked American conspiracy theory that the United States government and major media is controlled by a cabal of Satan worshipping pedophiles, blah 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 blah. Now, that's partially true. The reality is that it is a American alt-right conspiracy, a far-right conspiracy, so to speak. The face value is that it's Trump supporting, and that's also inherently true. The reports from Q are mainly filled with the idea that the former U.S. president is fighting a evil cabal set to destroy the average American person and have sex with all their children and weirdo shit like that. It's also very cryptic. The term "trust the plan" is used quite often, but no one ever really knows what the plan is. They only know what the supposed end result is going to be. That end result is the conviction of political elites and celebrities that are all involved in human trafficking and the destruction of America. There was a lengthy article put out by ABC trying to claim they knew who the identity of Q was. Supposedly, the actual owners of the boards were Q. While the Watkins, these are the people who own those boards, are tactless, tasteless piles of human garbage. Whether or not they are behind the whole movement is circumstantial at best. They have access to the message boards just like anybody else has access to the Chans and Lacun message board. The person who developed it had partnered with the Watkins and then subsequently left because of personal reasons. And if you read the entirety of this article from ABC, titled The Men Behind QAnon, you will find that it's really more of a personal hit piece. They have zero problems parading around a physically handicapped gentleman who felt that he was wronged by the Watkins, and therefore is engaging in pettiness, really. When alerted about the Watkins' situation beyond the message boards themselves, his response was petty. He's back in the U.S. and they're never going to let him back in the Philippines. Really? That's the best you got? Nobody's talking about the personal fallout between Brennan and the Watkins, but judging from the way the Watkins handled the Chan sites and the Kun site, and that's Kun, K-U-N. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with language and less to do with anything else. Was pretty much their stand on not being responsible for what people post and not policing what people post, because that's what 4chan was all about, that's what 8chan was all about, and I can only imagine that's what the current site is also all about. The interview with Brennan actually highlights how he felt he was wronged by the Watkins. And I can only imagine that that's really based on the thought process of, well, I don't like how our partnership ended, and now that the spotlight's on this guy, I'm going to take advantage. And that's really what it smacks of. So, what do I actually believe? I believe that access to the message boards is open and free, so I don't necessarily think that the Watkins needed to be involved in any of that. When all the hubbub started, like a good vulture, Watkins was there to profit from Q merchandise, but I'm sorry, you're claiming that he is behind the whole QAnon movement is ludicrous at best. That is in part what I believe is the lie, that Q is some sort of grassroots national movement at all. It's too organized for that type of situation to be the case. And now, a word from our sponsor, the Sacred Agora. The Sacred Agora, your one-stop shop for musical instruments, music lessons, art, and graphic design. Please visit us at thesacredagora.shopify.com. And thank you. Welcome back. So, now comes the question, where have we seen things like this before? Because history has this nasty habit of repeating itself over and over and over again. And I can only imagine that we had seen this before. Well, up until contemporary time. the use of propaganda to direct public opinion insofar as to influence the overarching government of the area, we need to look no further than the war on drugs. The war on drugs is a multi-level orchestrated event created by the United States government to fight the incoming drug epidemic. It was really started in earnest like in the 30s, and was like a slow simmer up until the 70s, and then, well, the 80s happened and everything just went batshit crazy. The United States government, in the facility of the Central Intelligence Agency, used misinformation about cartels, infiltrated cartels, and used the assets they had within these situations to import massive amounts of drugs and distribute them throughout poor communities. Now, I know you're thinking, why would they just give drugs away for free? They didn't. They sold them. They definitely profited off of these drugs that they were distributing throughout the United States. This has been declassified. We know this for a fact at this point. So it's no longer a conspiracy that it was assumed to be in the early 2000s. Well, what did the CIA need with all of this money? Well, the 80s and 90s, the United States was in a quiet conflict with South and Central America. The engagement of regime change by the United States is not a secret, to say the least. We've known about it since just about the 80s with the Iran-Contra scandal. Contras are from Central America. They were funding, training, and engaging in paramilitary activity throughout Central America in order to engage in regime change. It was discovered and reported by Congress at the time that the CIA was operating in this manner, amongst other things, economic hitmen, the breaking of sovereignty of other countries to go after drug producers that were not falling in line with what the CIA wanted them to do. Most particular, Pablo Escobar. Amongst other things, the list of unclassified information is astounding, and to think that anyone who thinks that the United States didn't do this, well, you are basically just denying reality at this point. In the 1940s, after the Shah of Iran was displaced, at the request of England, mind you, the United States engaged in a propaganda campaign against the elected leader of Iran, because he was looking to socialize the oil supplies of Iran. Now, how I feel about capitalism versus socialism is irrelevant here. The people of Iran decided who they wanted their slave master to be. England was unhappy with that because their companies couldn't profit off of the oil that they controlled. So instead of embroiling in a long military campaign, the CIA was employed to engage the population in a good old popular revolt. against their democratically elected leader to reinstall the king of Iran. That's the Shah. The Shah is the king. And we cannot forget Hawaii. Anybody who knows any amount of the actual history of Hawaii understands the Hawaiian desire to leave the United States. The rulers of the Hawaiian Islands were disposed of and unceremoniously, utilizing family grudges backed by military, and it's just yet another very similar United States maneuver for regime change to allow Hawaii into the fold. I'm not going to name names in the Hawaii thing because I don't want to butcher them, just to be completely fair. The Queen was unceremoniously disposed of, and I believe it was her brother who had taken the throne and engaged in the treaty with the United States. And that was found to be pretty much all organized by the administration and their operatives. So, there you have it. From creating a hero out of Trump, so to speak, to encouraging and informing people of the potential for a violent takeover of government. All of this stuff has happened before. We've seen it before. And it doesn't take much to go, well, this and this is exactly similar. These people are playing from the same rule book. But more on that after these words from our sponsor. What we do at ILMT is teach creative music writing. We offer one-on-one personal sessions at competitive rates. Our one-on-one personal sessions are made to pull the creative musician out of you. So let me help you on your journey to become a better musician. And we're back. So, how is Q not an operation by the United States government? In the wake of 9/11, the United States passed the Patriot Act and subsequently so many more acts which gave expanded surveillance capabilities of the government in the lives of its own citizens. And I don't know if anybody understands this, but the United States counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, or COINTELPRO, however you want to say it, benefited greatly from illegal activities that had since become legal. So it's not a far stretch to say that the counterintelligence program is still alive to this day, just now operating legally because of FISA allowances that have been upheld by every president since they were put in place, mind you. The Federal Bureau of Investigations has a long troubled history of infiltrating groups and pushing for radicalism. In recent history, just in case anybody really thinks that this was something that just happened in the past and doesn't happen anymore, we have the case of the attempted kidnapping of Governor Whitmer. It turned out that there was one person involved in this that was not part of the government, and he was the person being led on by the vocalizations of everyone else that was involved in this plot. The plot was hatched by the FBI. The plot sought people to help them, and they came up with one person in their group, and that person wasn't even really discussing anything that had to do with that plan. And they were moving away from involvement with that group when they decided to radicalize. Oddly enough, kind of going against the complete narrative of how unhinged people are against Democrat leaders. That whole thing blew up during the summer, and it's very strange how that had almost no news coverage once it broke. It got the news coverage of, oh, there's a radical group trying to kidnap a governor, and there was plenty of memes supporting this whole idea, but then when the facts came out, the story just disappeared. I mean, there's still people who share the memes about, you know, unpatriotic people looking to kidnap their governor. But it turns out when you actually look at the facts, none of that was really true. Other FBI sting operations. Well, just in case we want a history lesson, let's do that. During the Civil Rights Movement, the FBI performed sting operations on both the Brotherhood of Islam, Malcolm X's organizations, MLK's organizations, Dr. King's organizations had FBI agents and informants involved in it, not as good actors. The counterculture revolution was rife with FBI influence in attempts to radicalize these people to be able to manipulate public opinion easier via propaganda. The cases of Waco, which everyone should be familiar with because apparently everybody but me watched the documentary this time last year. The FBI and the ATF had been involved with infiltrating the Branch Davidians and providing information as members of this group that they called a cult, an attempt to paint a picture that didn't necessarily jive with what was really going on. Another tragic story, the story of the Weavers in Ruby Ridge, where the FBI had actually attempted to recruit Randy Weaver, and when he denied the request to be recruited, they went after Randy Weaver with a vengeance. killing his wife and his son, literally shooting his wife in the head while she was nursing their infant child. That's your government. That's who they are, by the way. Just in case you were wondering, that's who they are. This is not a Republican or Democrat phenomenon. This is a government versus non-government phenomenon. Just to be clear. So, how does this tie into Q? Well, the organization of Q is very top-down. Q is actually one poster on the Chan sites. He or she, they have a individual number that's attached to their post. So therefore, people can identify whether it is that person or someone else. Tying back to the beginning of this, that's the reason why the United States government was so interested in the owners of the site, because they have access to the individual or individuals that are responsible for the Q posts. The site QMap, it turned out, wasn't even affiliated with the message board. It was developed by some dude in New Jersey, and then when it was found out who he was, well, he dropped the site. So it's smacking less and less of an individual who is directing a group of people as much as it is a counterintelligence scenario. The things posted by Q are outlandish and ridiculous. It's painfully obvious that anyone who subscribes to this is mentally unhinged. It runs the full gamut of the David Icke lizard people bullshit and the some government is okay, but the secret cabal government is evil. The reality is that it smacks of regime change, not fighting the good fight. So, what does the organization kind of tell us? Well, it being a top-down organizational situation tells us that the information is being produced by one group and distributed. And the distribution of this information from a centralized source really just says it's a setup. I mean, it's a setup. And the other telltale sign is the language being used. The language being used by the Q drops is the language smacked of the sovereign citizens and the constitutionalists of the United States, quoting all sorts of weird conspiracies about how there's multiple different layers of law, and there's different layers of law. There's laws that apply to different things differently. But to say that the individuals of this country are not subject to X law, but the politicians are, it's just all of the same conspiracy stuff that the sovereign citizens and the constitutionalists groups were bringing into the Ron Paul movement in the early 2000s. speaking about, corporate law versus admiralty law versus common law, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, it's the same insane message that happened 20 years ago, just happening all over again. And 20 years ago, these people were being heavily investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Do you see where I'm coming with this? The government is not known for its ability to be creative. Quite the contrary. It's known for taking old things and just repackaging them and throwing them back at people, pretending like it's something new. And that's what Q is. It's a repackaged anti-insurgency tool that everyone thinks is new, and it's not. It's the same shit, different day. Now, is there any real hard evidence? No. The FBI is really good at their job of hiding their tracks. 20 to 50 years from now, when everybody who is involved in the FBI during this time has died, maybe they'll release unredacted files involving this when it's no longer an issue. I mean, shit, it happened in the past, it's done. And the same thing happened with the United States involvement with Iranian politics. The only reason why we have any information about the Iran-Contra scandal is because it became public knowledge. Otherwise, in, I don't know, like 10, 15 years, we might actually get unredacted information about it. But as of right now, we have that because, oops, it got found out. So, a comfortable lie. Well, the comfortable lie is that this insane fringe group is actually representing 50% of the United States population, and obviously they are unfit to be involved in politics at all. Q caters to a small, very small fringe group. The last report that the social media giant Facebook had done reported somewhere between all social media accounts, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, that there was 4 million individual users across all of these platforms. 4 million. And that's not, stating the obvious. You can have one of each of these accounts. You can have multiples of these accounts. I mean, how many people do you know that have multiple Facebook accounts, have multiple Instagram accounts, have multiple Twitters? I have multiple Twitters. I have a Twitter for my personal stuff, and I have a Twitter for Bard and Broad. I had an Instagram for my writing, and when that got hacked, I just made a personal Instagram. But I have the ability to make multiple accounts across, and so does everybody. So, I mean, even if you want to put the bar at 1 million, that's probably the top bar. In a country of 350 million people, less than 1/3%. Have anything to do with following this information. What does that tell you? Well, if you've listened to any of the things that I've said in the past few weeks, or even in last season, public opinion is guided by loud minorities. Well, this is a minority of the people, and everyone's opinion about their political opponents is informed by a very loud minority, the Q people. The reality is the American people are super gullible across the board. It's not just a Republican or a Democrat issue or a Libertarian issue. It is a human issue, and the human desire to want to make sense out of chaos. So that's it. That's what I think Q is. Mind you, I'm not commenting on whether or not I think the country is run by a bunch of psychotic pedophiles, because I got some bad news for you. It probably is. So, just to be completely fair, I don't necessarily think that everything that comes out of the QAnon group is a lie, and I think that that's what makes it stick. We all sit here and we all consider, the evidence, but it's honest enough to sell a lie. And this has been Comfortable Lies. I hope you enjoyed season 2. I will be back for season 3 in the coming months. Stay safe out there.